Hey there. We both love to dig into a good historical deep dive, right? And this story, it's one of those that stuck with me. 1914, picture it. The Komagata Maru sails into Vancouver. Hundreds of passengers, most of them Sikh immigrants. Ready for a fresh start. Seems like a straightforward immigration story, no?
Oh, if only it were that straightforward. What we're about to unpack here is a whole knot of immigration laws, blatant discrimination, and this fight for basic rights that honestly still echoes today.
It's wild to think about, right? So paint the picture for us what's going on in Canada back then that makes this arrival anything but ordinary.
Okay, imagine Canada in the early 1900s. This idea was everywhere, this white man's country thing. And it wasn't just talk, it was baked right into their laws.
You're talking about like that continuous journey regulation, right?
Exactly. On paper, it sounds almost reasonable. Immigrants got to come directly from their home country, no stopping at other ports. But, and there's a big, but practically no ships went straight from India to Canada. So it was really just a sneaky way to keep certain people out.
So a way to disguise discrimination, basically. And on top of that, wasn't there a huge financial hurdle for these folks, too?
You got it. The infamous $200 requirement. Now, that might not seem like much these days, but back then, whoosh, major roadblock. Meant to weed out anyone who couldn't pay, plain and simple. Used all over the world to keep poorer folks from immigrating. And guess who it hit hardest in this case?
Those trying to come from India, of course. So Canada's putting on this show of welcoming immigrants, but the reality, especially for Indians, was totally different.
You hit the nail on the head. And that's where our ship comes in, the Komagata Maru. Enter Gurdit Singh. Successful Sikh contractor living in Singapore sees all this injustice going down.
He's the one who chartered the ship, right?
Yeah.
What made him take such a risk?
He was deeply, deeply troubled by what he saw. These discriminatory laws, they just ate at him. He truly believed, as British subjects, Indians had every right to go wherever they wanted within the British Empire. The Komagata Maru wasn't just a voyage, it was a statement.
It was a challenge.
Right, he was taking them head on.
And the passengers themselves, talk about a leap of faith.
No kidding. Farmers, laborers, students, regular people, with the same hopes and dreams. They were risking it all for a chance at something better, knowing full well it wasn't going to be easy. They were determined to build a future where their families wouldn't face the same limitations they had back home. This was about more than just them. They were doing it for future generations.
So they set sail from India, a mix of hope, and you got to figure, a good dose of fear, too. Little did they know they were about to become part of this huge story, one that would echo through history.
A powerful symbol of pushing back against a system rigged against them.
I can practically see it. The Komagata Maru pulling into Vancouver. Months at sea, finally there. The passengers. Well, what a mix of emotions, right? Hope, excitement, probably some nerves, too. What's going to happen?
It really hits you that history's about real people, And they're welcome. Let's just say it wasn't what they'd hoped for. Canadian officials, downright hostile.
Talk about a slap in the face. Here they are, British subjects, arriving. And it's a closed door, betrayal almost.
They knew their rights, and they weren't going to back down. They organized right there on the ship, protests, lawyers, even reached out to supporters back in India, all over. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about a system that was just plain wrong.
They found their voice, and in doing so, their story started to spread. So what did the Canadian government do about it?
Well, they didn't exactly back down either, did they? They doubled down, actually, pulled out that continuous journey regulation, slapped the label illegal immigrants on them, talk about a loaded term, but this was also a time when news traveled faster globally. Word got out. The Komagata Maru. It became an international incident.
And it wasn't just headlines, right? There were folks in Canada itself fighting alongside them.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Shore Committee.
Lifesavers, that's what they were. South Asian immigrants already in Canada, they knew the drill, the discrimination, rallied support, money, even got lawyers for the passengers stuck on that ship. Hussein Rahim, Sohanlal Pathak, Balwant Singh, names to remember. Real heroes.
They saw themselves in those passengers. Shows you the fight for fairness, it bridges generations. So you've got this standoff, the world's watching, pressure's building. What finally broke?
Despite everything, those passengers, their allies, the government wouldn't budge. And on that ship, food's running low, water too. Things were getting desperate.
I can't even imagine. Stuck like that, hope fading.
July 23rd. 2 months. 2 months they were stuck. The Canadian government sent in the army, escorted the Komagata Maru out, back to India. Dreams crushed, the future uncertain.
Heartbreaking. But is that the end of the story?
Oh, not even close. This might have happened in Canada, but the shockwaves. They hit India hard, exposed the British Empire for what it was, lit a fire under those fighting for India's freedom. That's where the Ghadar Party comes
Then
in.
that's a twist. Who were they?
Revolutionaries, mostly Punjabi Sikhs, fighting to kick the British out. They saw what happened with the Komagata Maru, and it proved their point. This wasn't just one ship, one group of people. It was the whole system, rotten to the core.
So this one event, thousands of miles away, it ignited a movement.
Absolutely. The Ghadar Party, they used it brilliantly. Showed everyone the truth about British rule. Speeches, articles, protests. The Komagata Maru became their symbol.
It's amazing how one event can have such a huge impact, even across continents.
That's what happens when it comes to immigration, identity, basic rights. It's all connected, and it matters now.
It's just awful. These passengers, they just wanted a fair shot, and instead they get treated like criminals by the very empire they were a part of.
It's tragic, months at sea, and then to be treated with such suspicion back home. The British authorities in India saw them as a threat, especially with the Ghadar Party connection. They were terrified.
And that fear, it led to violence, didn't it? What happened when the Komagata Maru finally got to Calcutta?
September 1914, the docks of Calcutta. It was chaos. British troops on edge clashed with the passengers. Shots were fired.
Oh, Midway.
19 passengers were killed.
A journey that started with such hope ended in such a horrific tragedy. It really shows the human cost of discrimination, of colonialism. Even trying to work within the system, they faced resistance at every turn and ultimately violence.
And of course, this only fueled the Ghadar movement, the outrage, the grief, but also this steely determination. The incident was used by Ghadar leaders to show everyone the true face of British rule, to push for complete independence. People like Tarak Nath Das, Barkatullah, Sohan Singh, they made sure the world knew. They used this to rally support in India and abroad.
So the Komagata Maru, it became inseparable from the fight for India's independence.
Yeah.
It's incredible how one event can have such a global ripple effect.
It really shows how interconnected these things are. Immigration, identity, human rights, they're all intertwined. And the thing is, these aren't just stories from the past. They're still relevant today. Think about the immigration debates happening right now, how we treat refugees, the discrimination based on where you're from or what you believe. These are echoes of the Komagata Maru right here, right now.
It really makes you think, have we actually learned from history? It's a question we all have to grapple with.
Absolutely. The Komagata Maru forces us to look beyond the surface, to see the deeper inequalities that still exist, and to ask ourselves some tough questions about justice and equality today. It's one of those stories that stays with you.
It reminds us that history isn't just dates and names in a textbook. It's about real people, their dreams, struggles, and this constant fight for a better, more just world. The Komagata Maru, it's a story that needs to be remembered, reflected on, and learned from. If this deep dive has piqued your interest, don't stop here. There are amazing books and documentaries out there that go even deeper into the Komagata Maru. Authors like Hugh Johnston and Ali Kazemi, they've done some incredible work bringing those human stories to light. So keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, keep the conversation going. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.